Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hi guys, back again with me, Juwita and Sari. In this video, I will do a presentation about error analysis of the English writing text written by the 10th grade students of SMA Negeri 1 Natal. Hope you enjoy it. So we will have 5 sections in here. The first one is introduction, and then review of related literature, and then methodology, after that findings and discussion, and the last one is conclusion and suggestion. Okay, so the first one is introduction. This research reveals errors made by first grade of senior high school students. In this chapter, the background of the research will be presented. It also provides the research questions and its significance. The definition of terms will be discussed in this chapter as well. Okay, so we will have research background, research questions, research significance, and definition of terms. On the research background itself, regarding the students' difficulties in dealing with English, the researcher wants to identify the common errors which were made by the first grade senior high school students in writing a story. And for the research question, based on the background, the problems of this research is formulated into a research question as follow. What are the surface structure errors in writing text which are made by the students in SMA Negeri 1 Natal? Okay, so we will talk about research significance and definition of terms. First one is research significance. Hopefully, this research has benefits that are useful for the development of every senior high school, especially SMA Negeri 1 Natal, its first grade students, its English teacher, and the developers of teaching material. This research is also not impossible to include other benefits for the readers or other parties. The first one is for the students. By discovering their own weaknesses, they can have clear understanding of using English. So in the future, hopefully the students can reduce their common errors in producing English sentences. And for the English teachers, by understanding their students' weaknesses and difficulties in learning English, this research will have a contribution to the learning and teaching process. It is hoped that the English teacher can evaluate more their teaching approach, methods, or techniques, and then modify into the better one, so the students can study English language effortlessly. And also the last one is for the developers of teaching material. Concerning the teaching materials, this research may be helpful to inform the effectiveness of current syllabus for the syllabus designers. So hopefully it can help them to create better and more appropriate materials for the senior high school students. And also for future researchers, this research can be used as a reference to analyzing other students' product. Okay, now we will talk about the definition of terms. This research uses some specific terms. Therefore, in this section, the specific terms will be explained thoroughly below. The first one is errors. Chomsky notes that errors are differentiated by the cause of errors, whether it is performance factor called mistakes and errors from lack of knowledge. And then the second one is surface structure. According to Crystal, the surface structure of a sentence is the final stage of the way words are combined to form in a sentence. He also adds that the term surface strategy is sometimes used as an informal term for the superficial properties of the sentence. Thus, in this research, the term surface structure is to provide how the words in a sentence are combined in a language. And then the last one, or the fourth one, is surface structure taxonomy. Dulai cite that surface structure taxonomy involved in this research is a system of categories which classifies errors based on the way surface structure are altered in sentences. So now we'll talk about the review of related literature. This chapter discusses the theories which are beneficial and used as a set of beliefs or ideas to issue a framework of this research. In order to conduct the research, the review of theoretical writings and researches is provided in this section. The summary and synthesis of those theories will be presented as well. Theoretical description. This section, the researcher collects some theories about student learning competence, namely how to assessing writing, second language acquisition, as a study to conduct error analysis and error analysis as the method of this research. The first one is error analysis. Error is a natural phenomenon in learning language, from Hendrickson. On the other hand, students used to feel that error is a failure and should be avoided. Norwich also concludes that a fear of making mistakes is one of the suppressing factors in formal learning situation. However, error analysis is a study of learners' errors, which is helpful for the teacher as a monitoring tool. It consists of some steps in identifying, describing, and explaining learner language. And for the steps of conducting error analysis. By conducting error analysis, defining errors is becoming an essential part. According to Corder 1974, there are the steps that follow, aside in Ellis and Barkusen. The first one is collection of a sample of learner language. This step provides the data for the error analysis. The data is collected by the researcher by noticing some factors of producing it. The researchers should decide specific circumstances that will control the learners to resolve the data. The second one is identification of errors after gathering the data. The researcher tries to identify the errors of the sample data. It becomes easier to identify if the researcher prepares the well-formed reconstruction of the sample data, which is produced by native speakers. And then the third one is description of errors. The description of errors is proceeded to specify the errors found. This stage has following steps. First, the researcher codes the errors to a set of descriptive categories. Second, he or she records the frequency of the errors in each category. Errors are described by the system of categories in order to present description of errors. Dulé, Bird, and Crescent. Also, it calculates the learner's error frequency. As setting out to define the errors, there are several kinds of taxonomies to classify the errors. One of them is surface strategy taxonomy. It points out four principles to define the learner's error. The first one is omission, and then addition, misformation, and then the last one is misordering, according to Dulay. And then the fourth one is the explanation of errors. Explanation of errors is a stage to find the sources of the reason why the errors are established. It is the most essential stage in this method. However, SLA researchers argue the error produced itself whether it is an error or a mistake. And then the fifth one is error evaluation. This is an additional and last stage in error analysis, but presents the result of conducting the research. According to Ellis and Barkusen, this stage results some evaluation of errors and recommendation for following strategy of learning. Surface strategy taxonomy. Surface strategic taxonomy concerns the way of surface structures differing from the well-formed utterance. From July 1982, claimed that there are four categories to differentiate learners' errors. The first one is omission, and then addition, misformation, and then the last one is misordering. Theoretical framework. The students didn't know that they were the research subjects. They tried to accomplish the task by attaining the social function of their text, but without ignoring the language feature usage. Further, error analysis provides some steps to discover the student's accuracy. It will show the student's gaps and process of purchasing the target language as well. Throughout error analysis, there are some systems offered. One of them is surface strategy taxonomy. Now we will talk about the methodology. Previous studies whose purpose was finding errors in learner language used content analysis as methodology. The researcher didn't only use by qualitative but also quantitative analysis based on how the former researchers interpreted the findings of their data. Moreover, the researcher of this study runs an analysis by using error analysis as its methodology. Furthermore, this research was conducted as quantitative research in order that a whole image of the participant's language can be discovered as answering the research question mentioned in the first chapter. And then we'll talk about the research method. The researcher conducted error analysis as quantitative research. Through this method, the documents are analyzed to identify the errors. And then the research setting. Before examining the sample data, the researcher had to ask permission to the teacher who teach English subject in SMA Negeri 1 Natar. By such permission, the researcher was allowed to analyze the documents as the subject of the research. Research participant and document. This research deals with document analysis which was produced by 22 students of 10 IPS 3, one of the first grade parallel classes in SMA Negeri 1 Natar. The documents were taken from the teacher who teach English subject. At that time, the teacher asked the students to create a writing products as daily assignments. There were 5 writing products chosen. And then the population and sample. After observing the school, the researcher got the information about the population at SMA Negeri 1 Natar. Population of this research was the 10th grade students of SMA Negeri 1 Natar in academic years 2022, where there were 42 students. And then the sample, this research applied the students from IPS of the 10th grade in SMA Negeri 1 Natar consists of 22 students. And then for the research variables and indicators, according to Arikunto 2010, variable is the object of research or whatever be the focus of the study. Variable types of errors made by the 10th grade of SMA Negeri 1 Natar. And then the indicator is error of omission, error of addition, misformation, and then misordering. And for the subject of the research, Arikunto 1996 states that the source of the data in the research was the subject from whom the data can be obtained. This research was held at the SMA Negeri 1 Natar. The research subject is the 10th grade students from class 10 IPS 3 in SMA Negeri 1 Natar. Research instruments. In this research, the data use a writing test. A writing test used to find out the kinds of errors made by students in writing. According to the syllabus, the researcher gave tests to the students by writing a text to know some information about kind of errors made by the students in writing text. And then the data collection. The way in collected data, the writer took steps as follows. First one is the teacher explained about the rules of writing a text, and then the teacher gave the outline to guide them in writing a text, and then after that the writer analyzed the students' works by making a list of the students' errors in writing text. And then the data analysis. The study deals with the purpose of knowing the simple present tense problems encountered by the students in their writing. Then finally, we will talk about the findings and discussion. The first one is the findings. The data described in this finding was taken from the students' writing text result of class 10 IPS of the 10th grade students at SMA Negeri 1 Natar. Detailed description of the data can be seen as follows. The first one is the kinds of errors in writing text. The students' writings was identified and classified based on the kinds of errors according to James, 1998. Then the frequency and percentage of errors is presented in order to ease readers understand the data. And then how to identifying the student's error. The following table shows the total of the errors in writing text based on kinds of errors. You can see on my screen right now. From the table that you can see, we can conclude that there are 13 errors of omission category, and then 6 error of addition category, 13 misformation category, and then 3 misordering category made by the students in writing text. Finally, we will talk about the discussion. In an attempt to answer the first research question, the surface structure errors in students' writing, the researcher presented the data in frequency and percentage of their occurrence. Description of errors based on surface strategy taxonomy which were made the students on their writing are discussed in this part to acknowledge the learner target language. This part explores more what errors made by the students, which depicts the learner's gap in processing target language. The first one is omission errors. Omission errors are found by identifying the absence of an item in a well-formed sentence. From the explanation, the researcher found 13 errors who omit from the students' writing test. For example, each building consists of 10 classes. It should be each building consists of 10 classes. And then the second one is addition. Is identified by a wrong item in one sentence. From the explanation, the researcher found 6 errors who presented which should not be presented from the student's writing test. For example, my school has 3 basketball courts. Ada S di belakangnya. It should be my school has 3 basketball court. And then the third one is misformation. Misformation also took place in students' writing products. It came up as the highest as well as omission frequency. From the explanation, the researcher found 13 errors of the students in writing text. For example, last year, I go to my grandparents' house. It should be last year, I went to my grandparents' house. And then the last one is misordering. Misordering happened because the students failed to arrange target language words into a well-formed sentence. Consequently, it might be misinterpret the sentences or waste some words. From the explanation, the researcher found 3 misordering in writing text made by the students. For example, my grandparents filled rice. It should be my grandparents' rice filled. Here you can see the data that I used to make this mini research. There are 5 writing products made by the students of the first grade students of SMA Negeri 1 Natar. And then we'll talk about the conclusion and suggestion. The conclusion. Considering the findings and the discussion in the previous chapter, the writer would like to conclude that the achievement of the 10th grade students of SMA Negeri 1 Natar by studying the errors of the students' difficulties in writing text could be analyzed to know how far the students understand to make English sentence. Based on chapter 4, the writer found that there were 35 errors made by the students. The writer classified the errors into 4 categories. They were errors of omission, errors in addition, errors in misformation, and errors in misordering. Generally, the students made such kinds of errors because they only transferred rules from their mother tongue. It happened since they did not really comprehend the target language. Richards 1985 says that these errors result from poor gradation of teaching items. The students made errors in writing text in 4 categories. It can be seen that there are 30% errors of omission, 25 errors in addition, 30% errors in misformation, and then 15 errors in misordering. Based on the findings of the analysis, the writer found that the students at the 10th grade have most dominant errors, particularly in dealing with omission and misformation in made writing text. And then for the suggestion, based on the result of this study, the writer would offer some suggestion to minimize the students' errors dealing in writing. For the English teacher, should find the better strategy in teaching to determine the ability of students' knowledge and motivate the students to learn tenses, so they will be able to improve their next errors. The teacher should know their students' ability in order to find out the students' difficulties. Thus, the teachers can solve the students' problems. And then the teacher should also be given more clear explanation about other grammatical rules such as article, spelling, sentence pattern, part of speech, and etc. so that the students can apply those rules correctly, both in oral and in written ways. And then for the students, they should learn more about tenses. Okay, I think that's all from me today. Thanks for watching and thanks for your nice attention. The last I say, wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Bye, have a nice day.